Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Come back again in my video. I'm Nur Sakinah Panggabean. In this video, we're going to cover the basic of inequalities. So we'll take a look at what all the different symbols mean and also how to represent inequalities on a number line. Let's start with the word or linear inequalities. Linear inequalities are inequalities that involve at least one in a linear algebraic expression. That is, a polynomial of degree 1 is compared with another algebraic expression of degrees less than or equal to 1. What are linear inequalities? Linear inequalities are defined as expressions in which two linear expressions are compared using the inequality symbols. The 5 symbols that are used to represent the linear inequalities. Okay, the 5 symbols that are used to represent the linear inequalities are listed below. We can see in the first is not equal. For example, x not equal 3. It means x not equal 3, so x could be 1, 4, or 50. Next, less than. It means x is less than 7, so x could be 6, or 5, or 2, or negative 10. Next is more than. This one means that x is more than 7, so a number like 8, 10, or 50. The thing that students normally find hardest about this topic too is just remember which symbol. So one way that might help you remember, it is remember that the less than sign look a little bit like an L, so L for the less than. And if you can remember that, then you know that the other sign which doesn't look like an L must be the more than sign. The next thing we need to look at are these two symbols, which look pretty much the same as our less than and more than signs, except they also have these horizontal lines underneath them. The straight lines basically mean are equal to. So this first expression means that x is less than or equal to 7. So as well as being number like 6, 5, 4, or negative 2, x could also be 7 itself. Similarly, the second expression means that x is more than or equal to 7. So again, the number might be 7 itself or any number bigger than 7. Another important thing to know is that when we take an expression like x is less than 10, that means exactly the same thing as 10 is more than x. In both cases, we're saying that 10 is the bigger value and x is a smaller value. We can also use negative numbers with inequalities. For example, x is less than negative 5 means that x can be any value smaller than negative 5. For example, negative 17, negative 3, negative 400, and so on. Whereas if x was bigger than or equal to negative 5, then it could be negative 5 itself or anything bigger like a negative 2, positive 2, or positive 50. We need to note that if p less than q, then p is some number that is strictly less than q. If p less than or equal to q, that it means that p is some number that is irrestrictly less than q or is exactly equal to q. Likewise, the same apply to the remaining two inequalities, more than and more than or equal to. Now, let's say we have a linear inequality 3x negative 4 less than 20. In this case, left side less than right side. We can see that the expression on the left hand side, that is 3x negative 4, is in fact lesser than the number on the right hand side, which is 20. Okay, next, the 4 types of operations that are done on linear inequalities are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Linear inequalities with the same solution are called equivalent inequality. There are rules for both equality and inequality. All the rules mentioned below are also true for inequalities involving lesser than or equal to and less than or equal to. Before learning how to solve linear inequalities, let's look at some of the important rules of inequality for all these operations. First, addition rule of linear inequalities. As per the addition rule of linear inequalities, adding the same number to each side of the inequality produces an equivalent inequality. That is, the inequality symbol does not change. If x more than y, then x plus a more than y plus a, and if x less than y, then x plus a less than y plus a. Next, to subtraction rule of linear inequalities. As per the subtraction rule of linear inequalities, subtracting the same number from each side of the inequality produces an equivalent inequality. That is, the inequality symbol does not change. If x more than y, then x negative a more than y negative a, and if x less than y, then x negative a less than y negative a. 3. Multiplication rule of linear inequalities. As per the multiplication rule of linear inequalities, multiplication on both sides of an inequality with a positive number always produces an equivalent inequality. That is, the inequality symbol does not change. If x more than y and a more than 0, then x times a more than y times a, and if x less than y and a more than 0, then x times a less than y times a. And the last 4. Division rule of linear inequalities. As per the division rule of linear inequalities, division of both sides of an inequality with a positive number produces an equivalent inequality. That is, the inequality symbol does not change. If x more than y and a more than 0, then x over a more than y over a, and if x less than y and a more than 0, then x over a less than y over a. Okay, we have solving system of linear inequalities. Step 1. Simplify the inequality on both sides on both the left and right sides according to the inequality rules. Step 2. When the value is obtained, if the inequality is a strict inequality, the solution for x is less than or more than the value obtained as defined in the equation. And if the inequality is not strict inequality, then the solution for x is less than or equal to or more than or equal to the value obtained as defined in the equation. Now, let's try solving linear inequalities with an example to understand the concept. 1. 2x plus 3 more than 7. To solve this linear inequality, we would follow the below given step. We subtract 3 from both sides, become 2x more than 7 minus 3. 7 minus 3 is 4, become 2x more than 4. 4 over 2 become x more than 2. The solution to this inequality will be the set of all value of x for which this inequality x more than 2 is satisfied, that is, all real numbers strictly more than 2. Next, to solving linear inequalities with variable on both sides. Let's use trying solving linear inequalities with one variable by applying the concept we learned. Consider the following example: 3x minus 15 more than 2x plus 11. We proceed as follows. Become negative 15 minus 11 more than 2x minus 3x. Become negative 15 minus 11 is negative 26, and 2x minus 3x is minus x. Become negative 26 more than negative x. Become x more than 26. The last thing we need to cover are inequalities like this, which contain more than one inequality sign. The sign work in exactly the same way too. So this one just means that 3 is less than x and the x is less than or equal to 7. Or in other words, x has to be between 3 and 7. So if we were taught that x is a whole number, then x must be 4, 5, 6 or 7. Because remember, it can be 3 itself, because 3 is less than x, but it can be 7 itself. You also need to understand how to represent these inequalities on a number line. So for this one, if we look at this number line, if 0 to 10, x must be somewhere in this region between 3 and 7. So we put little circles above above the jar and the 7. The important bit talk is that because x can also be equal to 7 itself, we need to color in this circle on the right, which tells us that x can be 7, whereas because x can count 3, we leave the circle above 3 empty. How to represent inequalities on a number line? Let's have a go at one more. So for this question, we need to show the inequality -3 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 4 on a number line. So if we draw a number line from -5 to +5, then we can put little circles above the -3 and the 4 and join them up with a line. Then the last thing we need to do is check if we need to fill in either of our circles. So because it says that -3 is less than or equal to x, we know that x can be -3 itself, and so have to fill in the circle above the -3, whereas because x has to be less than 4, we know that x can't be 4 itself, and so we leave the circle above 4 empty. Anyway, that's everything for this video, so hope that all made sense, and just for watching. Assalamualaikum.